This is Cindy from Cindy's Library. Welcome back. And today I want to talk about what I read in the month of March. So we will start with the biggest one. Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Yes, I finally finished it. And I'm not going to say too much about it because I am going to give this one its own full review shortly. But I will say I quite enjoyed it, and I'm very glad I read it. And I can see why there are abridged versions. So there is that one. I also finished The Art of Biblical Narrative by Robert Alter. Wasn't sure I was going to finish it, but I actually did, so yay! And it's exactly what it sounds like. It talks about how to read the Bible from a literary perspective, and specifically from a more ancient literary perspective, with the use of repetitions and specific word choice and characterization portrayed by what is not said or done as much as by what is said and done, and the nature of the narrator. So very, very interesting. I'm hopeful I will never read the Bible quite the same way again. But might not be for everyone, but if you're interested in studying the Bible, it might very well be worthwhile, especially since Robert Alter is a very well-known biblical scholar, specifically of the Hebrew Bible. So let's see, and I also read Be Not Troubled by Ronald A. Rasband. Short little book, but very inspiring. I found a lot of these chapters, if they were not word for word from some of his best or most classic talks, I should say, that he has given since becoming an apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I would say that they weren't a verbatim copying of those talks. They were the basis of these chapters. I like what it says here on the back. He who calms the seas will calm our hearts, shelter us in his arms, comfort us on our very bad days, and heal our wounds. And that is so true. So very, very enjoyable. It's good to remember some of his classic past talks. And I read Henrietta's House by Elizabeth Goudge, a fun little story with some illustrations. And illustrations inside as well. What makes this a bit of an ironic book is that ostensibly Hugh Antony is coming home for the summer holiday, and of course Henrietta is very excited about that. So they're all getting ready for him to come home, especially since not too long after he comes home is going to be his birthday. So everyone is thinking about and getting ready for that. And Hugh Antony, he has asked for a picnic with some specific people from Torminster. grandfather and grandmother, of course, Jocelyn and Felicity, of course, the dean, another canon and his wife, and a few other people like that. And they have an adventure, but the ironic thing is that it is indeed more about Henrietta's house than about Hugh Antony's birthday party. Because Henrietta wants a house where she can put all the people that she cares about in it. I suspect she feels that way given her parents' background, even when they were together. I don't know how settled of a life they had. And then, after her father left and her mother died, she was in the orphanage. And yes, grandmother and grandfather's house is a great place to be, but I'm not sure Henrietta exactly feels that it's her house. Anyway, so I can appreciate Henrietta wanting her own house. And she does indeed get a house, and it is indeed hers, although she discovers she does nothing whatsoever to create it or to earn it, really. And it indeed becomes a place where people she loves can come, and in the meantime, everyone else has adventures getting their way inadvertently to Henrietta's house. So very fun to see Henrietta and Hugh Antony again. They are some of the funnest characters I've come across. Other quirky characters in Elizabeth Googe that I love, but Henrietta and Hugh Antony are probably some of the funnest. And it's a house that even might encourage her wandering father to not wander quite so much, which would be a good thing. Oh, and let's see. And for finishing up the middle grade March reading challenges, I had 3 challenges left to go. And so, first one was Miracles on Maple Hill. This was about a book with a strong family or found family theme running through it, and Maple Hill certainly qualifies. I'm not sure how long it's been since Marley's father has come back from the war. Don't think it has been overly long, maybe a few years. And living in the middle of New York City, I believe. Yeah, he's not really getting better from recovering from the war. And I'm not talking about the physical part. Apparently he was a prisoner of war, and they don't have to give us any details to portray that he had a bad time. So, partly to help him, partly to save on money, Marley's grandmother, I think it was grandmother, had a little house up in the mountains, Pennsylvania maybe? Several hours away driving from New York at least. Anyway, so they decide they are going to live there. Father will live there full time, the rest will come on the weekends, and then for the whole summer when school is out. Marley and her older brother Joe and her mother. And Marley is from the first enchanted by the place because it is an actual maple farm, and she learns all about the process of getting maple, and it is quite the challenge to do it, but Marley is up for it. As for her family, they meet their neighbor, Mr. Chris, and there's a Mrs. Chris as well, although the two are not related. And there is the old hermit who is there when it's not too cold, that they also make friends with. And there's the hired man on Mr. Chris's farm. And Marley discovers many wonderful things about country life, as does Joe. Joe may even learn more, but Marley learns a lot. And Marley, she comes to love the place. I think the whole family does. Joe, he misses his friends, but he's able to go to a good high school with a band, so that compensates for something, and he does truly enjoy the outdoors too. So they actually decide, once the school year comes around again, that they are going to stay there. And the reason why is that Father is actually getting better, and they all decide that for that reason alone it is worth it for them to all stay there on Maple Hill. So it's rather slice of life, very sweet, absolutely loved it. The only complaint I have is they do seem to talk down to Marley a bit. Granted, she is the youngest, but still, it's not just Joe that does it, it's everyone. And she should be encouraged more. Possibly within set bounds, because she is younger, granted, but still, they don't need to put her down all the time and say she can't do things. So that is too bad, but other than that, quite enjoyed it. See, I also read Sweep, the Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Auxier. This is for the challenge of a book with a silhouette on its cover, which this one has. So it was last year, I read a few other books by Jonathan Auxier and quite enjoyed them. In fact, I think I did a full review of Sophie Queer and the Last Story Guard. So I'll have to put a link to that one. But as for Sweep, this is a story of Nan Sparrow, who is indeed a sweep. She grew up on the streets as a sweep. She was found by this sweep, and he took her in and taught her everything and made life wonderful no matter how hard it was for her. Sadly, one day when she was about 6, the sweep disappeared. All she had left of him was his hat and this lump of soot. And she is forced to apprentice herself to Wilkie Crud, who be hard to imagine a worse master, although apparently from what it says in the historical note, Jonathan Auxier didn't put the half of how children sweeps were treated, which is a very sad thing. But one day Nan is cleaning the chimneys of a girls' school and gets stuck. And long story short, she somehow wakes up the lump of soot and it becomes alive and saves her. she calls him Charlie. That's what he decided he wanted to be called. And they become great friends. He helps her, although they have to be careful once he becomes big, because he looks rather frightening to most people. But there's still the problem of Wilkie Crud, who's looking for Nan Sparrow, and the problem of sweeps in general. And there's also the mystery of what exactly Charlie is, at least for the first part. We discover that he is a golem made of soot, and he was created by the sweep for Nan. And so there's plenty of adventure, plenty of learning. Nan has a couple friends that she interacts with, particularly Mudlark, who she probably trusts the most in the world other than the Sweep now that he is gone, in spite of how annoying he can be. But yep, very, very good story. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure I enjoyed it quite as much as the other two books, but I really enjoyed it all the same. I would have to give it good solid 4, I'm thinking. And I'd have to give Maple Hill a 4.5 for how much I enjoyed it and how sweet it is. That leaves the last book that I was able to finish for the month of March and for the middle grade reading challenge, and that is The 12 by Cindy Lynn. And this is for the challenge of a book with a journey or adventure, and boy does the 12 have that. It's a very interesting world she set up. Actually all the action takes place on this island nation that no one knows why, but certain people develop powers and traits of the 12 animals of the zodiac and the 5 elements. And the strongest of those are the 12 guardians. But 5 years ago, the guardians failed and the island was overrun by invaders, and most of the ordinary people are living miserable lives, and anyone with powers is hunted and dragged off to the capital and never seen again. Our main character, Usagi, has been hiding out near her former home with her younger sister Uma and her best friend, might be a year or 2 older, Tora. Somehow they have managed to survive this long, but one day their luck fails. And Usagi gets separated from Uma and Tora, and Uma and Tora are captured and dragged off to the capital. However, Usagi discovers that not all hope is lost, because there is one full master of the zodiac and 4 apprentices who survived on Mount Jade, which the invaders have yet to be able to overcome. And so Usagi goes with them to train and develop her own abilities as a member of the Year of the Rabbit and having the element of wood with her as well. I guess I should say Uma is the Year of the Horse, the element of fire, and Tora is the Year of the Tiger. And so Usagi goes to Mount Jade to train in her abilities, possibly become one of the apprentice heirs. And all in order to be able to rescue her sister and her friend. Of course, it's more complicated than that, and I'm not sure quite what to think of this story yet. On the one hand, it certainly grabbed and kept my attention and pulled me through, and wonderful world building, great characters. On the other hand, it's a heartbreaking situation to begin with, and it becomes more heartbreaking later. So I'm not sure quite what to think of it. I probably need to reserve judgment though until I read the second book. There is at least one more book. I know that is out, The 12 Treasures. Because there not only were 12 guardians, they made 12 treasures to help protect this island. So no doubt they will go in search of these treasures. Have to see where I can fit reading this one into my list. The fact that I want to read it is a good sign though, so I'd say at this point, probably give it a good 4. Yeah. Might increase it depending on how the second book makes me feel. So that is what I read for the month of March and for middle grade March. And there's definitely some books that I want to read, namely Treasures of the 12 and I do want to read the rest of the Book Wanderer series by Anna James. And I'm also interested in reading OK for Now by the same author as The Wednesday Wars. I have to see when we'll be able to fit those in. I may or may not get to them anytime soon because I have a lot of catching up to do. Although now that I am actually done with Les Mis, that opens up listening during work to other things a bit more, which will be good. And yes, I am planning on listening to the 3 Wax and Wayne books by Brandon Sanderson and get through them that way. So, love to hear how you did with your March reading. If you did any or all of the middle grade challenges, I'd love to hear about that as well. Feel free to leave comments and suggestions. Thank you for stopping by Cindy's Library. Until next time, I hope we all stay healthy and safe, and as always, happy reading!